My name is Stacy Tremaine. I'm a special education teacher at Savannah Oaks Middle School for the past 17 years. And yeah,
Hi, I'm Reagan Covington. This is my sixth year teaching special education, 5 here in the Verona district. I currently teach at Country View Elementary, working with the littles, second and third grade. And we're excited to be here tonight to present some information about IEPs in the virtual world. So some topics that we'll be covering today are what to do at home, how to read the supplementary aids and services, and acknowledging the differences between accommodations and modifications. Some things that you can do if your child is struggling with certain topics, specially designed instruction, goals, and IEP meetings in a virtual world. Next.
so before we start, I just want to make sure that we recognize that every district does things differently. So within this presentation, we're going to be talking about how Verona is currently implementing virtual learning for their special education students. So throughout the presentation, if you have questions about something specific, please make sure that you ask your individual um, school district. So kind of the first thing we're going to start with is the purpose of an IEP or an individual education plan. There's four parts. So the first part always identifies where the student is currently or where your child is currently and their strengths. It identifies where the student's educational needs are presently. It contains the learning goals. And it also describes the services that a student needs to receive in order to progress toward their learning goals. Next.
So students who have an individual education plans are diverse, and the virtual learning can be created to meet the specialized needs of these students. Collaboration between families and the school is critical to students' learning opportunities. And like Stacy said, every school district across Wisconsin right now is doing things differently. So if you do have questions, talk to your individual school districts and your student special education teachers. Next.
So kind of the tip one that we would like to talk to you guys about is the collaboration between families and the special ed teacher. Please, if the special ed teacher hasn't done it already, set up regular meetings with them to discuss the progress and to adjust the learning to make sure that their needs are being met. You can make personal connections with the special ed teacher via Zoom, via Google Meets, whatever your district is using, and explain your preference of communication. So that may be phone calls. You may prefer texts. A lot of times, a lot of teachers have the ability to have Google Voice, so they can text you if that's the best mode for you to communicate with them. And to please tell your teachers what successes you're having, struggles, or any questions that you have while you are at home with your child doing the virtual learning. Next.
So one of our first big ideas for how to make virtual learning successful at home is to set up a very clear and defined learning environment. Try to have a separate place or space where your school is done at home. So in this picture, you can see that this student has a very structured desk-like setting that they know once they sit down in that learning environment, this is where school takes place. This is a place where you can add things like the calendar, your schedules, all of their learning materials that your student may have. And your special education teacher can help you get started with some of this at home by providing some of the resources that they provide for your student when they're at school. The goal is to try to make a very clear space that once your student knows that they're in this environment, it's time for school. Time to turn off the things from at home, and that this is where we do our learning at home. Next.
The second thing we would like to see is to create a daily routine or a schedule. To include when will synchronous live instruction be happening? When will asynchronous, possibly videos be happening? When are movement breaks going to be happening? Break times? When are teacher check-ins? And one of the things that we also like to see is like if you have like a must do or can do columns, so the student can know what is things that assignments that they have to do and assignments that they can do if they have extra time. One of the important things about having a daily routine or schedule is it takes the guess out of what comes next. It provides a sense of security and belonging to the classroom, which then leads to better social skills, improved self-esteem, and even emotional growth. Next.
So here are just a few different examples of what a daily visual schedule could look like. They can be anywhere from as simple as writing first then on a whiteboard or piece of paper and having the student complete the first activity and then earning a preferred activity such as iPad or free choice time, to a more color-coded visual schedule that says exactly when their time of day is, what they're doing, and who they're meeting with, or to even one that's very personalized for a student who might need a visual support, such as the teacher that they're going to be meeting with. With virtual learning, there are a lot of different times where students are logging in, logging off, and it's important that they know what face to expect when they log on to help provide that comfort and connection. So for some students, an activity or a daily visual schedule, such as the larger one with the staff pictures, can really help provide them with a sense of security that they know every day when they log on for advisory, this is the person that they're going to see and the person that's going to be leading them through their day. I have found that it's really helpful to make sure that the students are using timers on their iPads that correspond with their daily visual schedule. So that way they know exactly when it is that they need to log on. Those visual timers as well are very helpful when they correlate with the visual schedule that they're expected to do for their day. Next.
The next part is movement and calming breaks. A lot of times you'll hear the teachers call these brain breaks. Brain breaks are great for our learners because it helps them to relieve stress and anxiety, and it actually can help to build focus and increase grit as they're working on their assignment. So movement calming brain breaks can range from a whole bunch of things, from yoga to breathing to doing various workouts, like this here, doing a workout to the letters of your name. It also can include just some fun, enjoyable movement breaks. One of my favorites is this Just Dance movement break that I enjoy actually doing with my kids because it makes them laugh and we have a good time. Christina, could you kind of show what the brain break is for what does the fox say?
Dog goes woof, cat goes meow, bird goes tweet, and
Perfect. So that is just an example of a fun movement break where it is coordinated so that they're doing different hand motions and movements, but it also helps them to get out some of their energy and to help refocus them. Next.
So every IEP includes supplementary aids and services. These are the supports and services that a student with a disability receives, so that way they can be with their peers to to the maximum extent possible. So before we dive into a few examples of those, it's just important to note the difference between accommodations and modifications. Those are two words that you'll hear your students case manager or special education teacher use frequently about what it is your student needs to be successful. So an accommodation changes the how, where a modification changes the what. So an accommodation does not change what the student is expected to know. However, a modification does change what the student is expected to know. So an example is for an accommodation, extra time or an audio book, whereas a modification might include reducing the number of problems that a student has to solve or lowering a reading level so that way they're able to participate more fluently at their own reading level. So it's just important to note that there are differences in what it is a student might receive, but that they are listed under the supplementary aids and services part of their IEP. Next.
So this next part is just showing some specific examples of some accommodations. The first one would be the access to word banks or outlines. And then it tells you when this should be happening and then where it should be happening. Also typing speech to text 100% of the time, all school environments. So these are specifically accommodations to what some children may need to be successful at school within the general ed classroom. Next.
So, what does your child need to be successful? The most important thing that we can say is to work with your special education teacher to see if they need things such as printed off versions or hard copies. Do they need physical manipulatives to be sent home? Virtual learning is a completely different version of learning for them, but we as their school teachers can really help make sure that you guys are getting the materials that you need for your student to be successful. So when looking at what it is that we're doing, we can have supply pickups and drop-offs. And some of the things that a student might need to be successful could be blocks or 100 charts to help them in math, whiteboard with whiteboard markers, things that you might not have access to at home, and basic school supplies as well. Other things that we found really to be successful for students in the virtual learning world are headphones. This really helps limit distraction noises that might be going on in the house behind them and helps them tune better into their teacher. With the headphones, I highly recommend one that has a microphone on it, especially if there are other students learning in the house. This way that they can really be heard by their teachers and make sure that the communication is possible. Other things are styluses that might help some students who need a bit more control over an iPad, or adaptive case. So there are tons of different iPad cases out there that can be helpful for not only having better stands for students to use, but that can make them more successful for them to use as well as more durable. I know that has been a big issue that we've been having, is to make sure that the students are safe with their iPads and that those are being successful within the home environment as well. So there's tons of adaptive cases out there that can really be successful for students. Next.
Verona uses several different reading programs to help supplement with reading. They use a variety of reading programs just to meet the diverse needs of our students who have IEPs. So the three programs do focus on phonics, reading fluency, reading comprehension, and vocabulary. An example of this is Raz Kids, which can be used as a reading tool. We have an example here to show how Raz Kids can be used at home if your district has access to this program. One of the reading programs that Verona uses to help support literacy is called Raz Kids. Raz Kids has a plethora of different activities and resources, but one of the main resources is it has leveled books. The level books start at AA, which, as you can see, is the ages, the grade level, if your school district uses Fountas Pinnell or Lexile. And it goes all the way to these ages, grade level, and Lexiles. And you can pick various levels depending upon where your student is. So for example, let's say your student's at level D, and you want to read a story about the animal tongues. You can assign that assignment to the student. Then they can listen to it if we want it to read out loud.
Animal tongues, written.
We can listen to it. Also, it can be an independent reading activity if you would like them to read about it. And then at the end, there is always a quiz. And the
turtle's tongue looks like a.
And the quiz is always read out loud so that you can assess if they are understanding what they're reading. And once it's assigned to the student, it allows them to read and then keep track of how they did with the quiz. And it sees if they are improving their reading or if their reading is not improving, so that you can continue to working on some of these reading skills. So RazKids is just kind of one example that a district could use to help with reading, reading skills. Next.
So some of the platforms that we are currently using here in the Verona School District are Seesaw and Canvas. Now, WEAC has has done another webinar previously that goes into greater detail on Seesaw and Canvas. So if you do want more information on how to use these platforms, check out their website for that. Personally, we use Seesaw at the elementary level because it has some amazing adaptive features built in that can really make your student be able to access the general ed curriculum with very little modification or accommodations to an assignment. It has things like narration built in that your students' teachers can be using. So that way, math text sheets, any assignments that they're being sent can be read to them, which eliminates you having to do any reading for your student. You can also use QuickTime to help upload multiple videos that can provide greater examples for your student to watch for asynchronous work. These are just two great ways for a student to have more accessibility to their general education curriculum. And platforms like Seesaw and Canvas have great built-in features. Stacy, did you want to talk about reading slides aloud a little?
Sure, sorry, yes. So one of the things for Canvas, that Canvas doesn't have any built-in reading features, but one of the things that the general ed teachers and I do to help support students that struggle with reading is that we'll read some of the slides out loud, and that it makes it accessible for all students to be able to listen to the slide versus reading it. So an example of that looks like of the reading of the slides. Hello, today we are going to be learning about the surface area of a triangular prism. Let's do some review about your vocabulary words of a 3D shape. Remember, face is the flat surface, edge is the side where it intersects, and the vertex is another way to say a corner. So we have the face, the flat part, the edge is the side, and the vertex is the corner. Now remember, you will be using 3 different formulas. You have the rectangle, the triangle, and the trapezoid. When you're looking at the different shapes, it's important that you make sure you're using the right formula. So let's take a look. If you see the net and it's on a grid here, you can easily count up all of the squares if you want to. And you remember, two triangles equals 1 rectangle. So you could count it up, but let's pretend that you don't have a net without the boxes to count. Then you need to take a look at the object or the shape. So here's my net. I have 1, 2, 3 rectangles, and I have 2 triangles. So when I do my formulas, I need to make sure I'm looking at the rectangles and the triangle formulas. And if you notice, this triangle and this triangle are the same. So that is a perfect. Today, again, you will have an optional practice. So that is just an example of me reading the slides for the students that might struggle to do this independently and to understand what they should be doing for their assignments. Next. When you're at home, you may see that your child is struggling with reading. And this goes along with being able to read what the assignment is, being able to read a website if they're doing research projects. So one of the accommodations that you could use would be an audiobook. And a lot of school libraries have many audiobooks that you can check out to help read and support reading. Another one is text to speech. If you want to, one of the extensions on Google Chrome is Read and Write for Google Chrome. And this is a great example that you can download for free to use with your students if they're struggling with reading. One of the options that you can use if you are looking to help your child with reading tasks independently is Read and Write for Google Chrome. And the way that you can do that is you click here on the corner to get the apps. Then you click the web store. And in the web store here, you're going to write Read and Write. And it comes up right here, Read and Write for Google Chrome. You would click on that, and then that would be added to your add-ons, and you'll see it over here. So what this looks like if you were to practice it is you can have your child go on whatever platform that they're using, and you may want to have them be able to read the directions. So as we're looking, you click on the add-on right here, and then you'll see that the little toolbar here comes up. And then what I would do is I would just highlight what I would like them to read.
Announcements and reminders. Have you completed your asynchronous Monday math? Is your Achieve activity done and score logged into your tracker? Essential, 6th grade math. Learning targets. I can convert between fraction, decimals and percents. Essential agenda. Learn. Teacher lesson presentation. Engage. Conversion practice. Weekly challenge optional. Class work checklist. Make sure. And what you can then hit the pause and it would pause. So your child would have the option to be listening so that they know what the directions are for each individual assignment. And this is something that is free, and anybody who uses Google Chrome can add this onto their add-ons. So Read and Write for Google Chrome is just a simple add-on that you can use to help support independent reading. Next.
So with writing, there's several different things that we use. We use Google Docs primarily because it's a great interactive feature. So your students can be writing on Google Docs at the same time as their teacher is writing on Google Docs, which really allows for us to have live interaction and be able to see exactly what it is that the student is struggling with and be able to teach and reteach in a live setting. I don't have to wait for the student to upload their writing to Seesaw or Canvas in order for me to provide them with corrections or to help them if they're struggling with topic, formations, how to use some of the features, if their dictation services aren't working. And it's a great tool because if the student is using an iPad or a Chromebook or whatever other technology your school has provided you, the students can use the built-in dictation features that are already available with the program. Another one is using the text-to-speech is the Co-Writer program.
If your child is struggling with writing, one of the great Chrome extensions is called Co-Writer. And to get Co-Writer, all you need to do is you go to the apps, you click on the web store, and then you click on Co-Writer. And you would add it to your extensions. Again, you can see that I added it. It looks like this little black puzzle piece here. So when I want to start writing something, I would go to Google Docs. Google Docs is a great platform to use when writing because your teacher can watch the student writing and also can give immediate feedback. So if I wanted to use Co-Writer, I would click on here and then I have to turn it on. And I maybe was going to write a story, so I would maybe start. And one of the things that Co-Writer does is it gives the students 5 options. So
on, only, once, other, once.
So I want to use once.
Once.
And then it even gives me the option upon a time. And I want to use that, so I'm going to do once upon a time.
time,
And then,
when, of, that, to, when the,
so, but I don't want any of those options. So I will type once upon a time there.
there, was, a,
There was a princess.
princess, named,
Hmm.
once upon a time, there was a princess named Cinderella.
And so once they put a period there, they will read, it will read the whole sentence to them. But another option that there is that there's also where you can record your voice. So let's just say there also was a dog in the forest,
There also was a dog in the forest.
and it will type that for you. So another option that Google Docs has, if I don't have co-writer, I can turn off co-writer. And this is another feature that Google Docs has. You can go to tools and they have what's called voice typing. And you can click that here and it click the microphone to speak. The dog was worried in the forest. And it will type everything that you said for you. So if your child is struggling with writing, this is another feature that will help them to complete any writing tasks. Another place your child could be struggling is with math. And sometimes parents ask themselves, does your child need hands-on manipulatives? Are they tech savvy? Can they do it online? In Verona, we use IXL at the middle school level. Elementary uses Dreambox as a math support. There's also an online program that's called Number Pieces that we can actually just skip for right now, so we make sure that we end on time. If we
And
want
Number Pieces is provided through the Math Learning Center, and they have a great variety of free apps that parents can download onto their students' devices that include things like 100 cubes, a bead rack, an interactive whiteboard. There's all kinds of virtual math manipulatives for them to use through the Math Learning Center. Next.
yeah. So tip number 3 is to every IEP includes what's called specially designed instruction, or SDI. SDI is what instruction the general ed teacher can't do on a regular basis. This is usually in small group or individualized, and it focuses on 3 main areas: the content, which means the knowledge and the skills, the methodology, which is what is the instructional strategies and programs that will be used to support the student with an IEP improving their academic abilities, and the delivery. How is the instruction going to be delivered? Is it going to be delivered virtually? Is it going to be delivered individually or in a small group? SDI also adapts the instruction to the individual needs of the student. Next.
So here's an example of what it might look like on your student's IEP. With virtual learning, minutes are often adjusted to meet their abilities to stay in focus during the virtual world. So they might have specialized instruction in executive functioning skills twice a week for 15 minutes. They might have social skills, or they might have self-help, readiness, reading, writing, math. It could look a variety of different ways, but the SDI talks about what they're getting, the frequency, the amount, and where it's taking place.
So what does SDI look like in a virtual world? Normally, it's about 15 to 20 minutes max per session, and a student usually has 1 to 2 sessions per day. And what can this look like? It can be happening after the whole group instruction. So after the teacher does their grade level instruction, the teacher may put the student, your child, and the special ed teacher or a paraprofessional in a breakout room, and they can work on reteaching or supporting what the child was learned in the regular ed classroom. And again, this can be in a small group, individualized and small group, or individualized with a special ed teacher or a paraprofessional. Next.
So take a look at your child's goals. We encourage collaboration with the IEP team, like was stated in the earlier presentation, to translate the child's IEP goals to the new distance learning environment. Our advice is to focus on the mastery of concept and skills. Students should get personalized supports to match their individual learning needs that builds on the mastery of a concept. So that way the material is both motivating and developmentally appropriate for your child. Ask yourself and your team, how will that be measured in a virtual world? It's most likely that you'll need to meet to review and revise the student's IEP more than once during the school year as things change and as you see what your student is being successful with in the virtual world. So really be an advocate for working with your IEP team to make sure that their virtual learning IEP goals match what it is they're able to provide and attend to in a virtual world. Next.
In Verona right now, all IEPs are virtual. So you can work with your school and your special ed teacher to get connected on Zoom or Google Meetings or whatever platform your district is using. But when you receive the invite of the meeting, like Carolyn had said earlier, start thinking about the goals or what your child needs to be successful in the virtual world. Ask questions during the meeting if something is unclear or if you're unsure of how that meets your child's needs to improve to meeting the grade level standards. Next. So this is a slide that just shows how we in Verona are doing our IEP meetings. We always start with the students' greatness. And we talk about how great they are to be around. And we talk about things they're doing well in the area of, you know, what they enjoy, communication, and what we see within the classroom. Next. It also includes the present level. So where is the student at right now? Where's this specific is for reading. So what are some really tangible things that we can see about how they're reading? Where are they at right now? Where do we want to go with them in the future? And making sure that we are hitting all of the things within the reading area. And then next. And then when we talk about the need and we talk about the goal and then having objectives. So we want to make sure we know where the student is now and where we want to go with the student within the next year for the annual IEP. Next.
So in our presentation, we've just included a few different references for you to check out on some of the information that we provided, such as brain breaks and heavy work tasks that you can do at home, and some different exercises that you can do when you're planning an IEP with your team. Next. So we just want to say thank you so much for listening to us. It was a great pleasure to be here.